Negative gearing reforms may be back on the table as the Prime Minister considers the housing platform he'll take to the next election. Let's bring in our political reporter, Cameron Reddin. Voters rejected a change in this space when Bill Shorten put it. How seriously is Labor looking at it this time?
Well, the Prime Minister had the chance to kick the door shut on this today, Kieran, but he did not do that. This Nine newspaper report today suggesting that the government has asked Treasury to model potential changes to negative gearing. And what would make these proposals different to the ones put forward by Bill Shorten is, rather than being restricted to new homes, the idea here is looking at capping the overall number of homes that one individual may be able to subject to negative gearing. Now, it's worth underlining this is not currently Labor policy. It is not as a part of their platform right now. But the government finds itself in a difficult position on housing. The Prime Minister has been at pains today to stress the fact that all of last week, the government attempted to get its housing policies through the Senate and was unsuccessful, blaming the Greens and the coalition of standing in its way. The Prime Minister has previously, been less open to negative gearing reforms. Here's his answer today when asked whether this change would be on the table for the next election.
I've seen those reports, and what we do is we value the public service. So from time to time, I'm sure the public service are looking at policy ideas.
Will you rule out changes to negative gearing and property taxes this term or next?
Well, what we're doing is doing the legislation that we have before the Senate. So I talk about what we're doing, not what we're not doing, and what we're doing is trying to get through that legislation.
So compare that language and that answer there to this one from May of last year, where the Prime Minister gave a much more succinct one-word answer to whether he would consider negative gearing changes at all.
Would you consider revisiting negative gearing policy ahead of the election?
No.
So you're completely ruling it out?
I think that was a pretty clear answer.
So, Cam, if Labor does go down this path, how many households, investors, how many people could be affected?
That's a lot of people, Kieran. We can show you some of the numbers now. As it stands, there are about 2.2 million Australians. These are individuals who have investment properties. Of course, not all of them are negatively geared. About half of them are. They're saving all up $2.7 billion in tax savings, essentially, tax that they're not paying because the rent they're getting in isn't covering the expenses on that home. When you look at the number of people who own multiple properties, though, this is what this idea that Treasury is modelling is looking into. You have about 1.6 million people own one investment property. And you can see how those numbers come down. But for 3 or more investment properties, these are the latest figures from the previous financial year before last, 219,000 Australians own 3 or more investment properties. Now, this modelling that Treasury is doing does not narrow down exactly what the different scenarios are going to be or could be under a potential policy. So we can't speculate too much on how many people exactly would be affected. But Sky News has been out on the streets today asking voters in Sydney, in Double Bay. My colleague Georgia Boonan's been asking them what they make of this speculation and whether they think it would be a good idea to revisit the idea of negative gearing.
I don't think it's helping with the housing crisis.
No, because it gives people an opportunity to build on what they have and increase their wealth.
I think giving tax benefits to rich people on multiple properties might be a bit over the top these days.
I think it should be abolished because I think it's driving up house prices. Definitely. Get rid of it.
So a bit of mixed reviews there, Kieran, but this will be fascinating over the months ahead. The coalition's spoiling for a fight on this. They think they've won 2 elections fighting changes to negative gearing, 16-19, when Bill Shorten was the leader of the Labor Party. They're spoiling for a fight again if it does go down that path.
Thanks,